those situations. And then we were of the opinion that 4% was not enough. But as citizens of a country, we don't crash our country. Let's take 4% and take 7%. My dear, when we finish that, the politicians are gone. Now we have to convey that message to our members. Come and see us here. Every week there were agitations in front of this place. Even that 4% and 7% gave birth to a certain group called Concerned TUC. Immediately people were taking advantage, and then because our members were hungry with us, they started moving. So the labor front was getting divided. And those of us in leadership position, your members kept threatening. They will either do, and this is a union, and the union is for the people and by the people. So if the people you are serving say that you are not meeting their interests, they have every right to remove you. So we faced all those for 2 years. So we managed the heat. We managed the temperature. People were ready to strike. And then they came here, we said, no, we are still adjusting to COVID. There were a number of things. So we have to explain to our workers. We went around the country talking to our workers. Then we come to this situation. After that negotiations, government made some announcements that were not friendly to the negotiations that we made. So you can remember those days, we were talking about incomes for presidents' wives. We're talking about government saying they are going to reduce their size. We're talking about we are going to maintain the prices of goods and services. None of those happened. Petrol prices increased. Electricity prices increased. So we are in a country where we negotiate once in a year. And for this time, we have staked our necks out and negotiated for 2 years. First year 4%, second year 7%. And we have signed a communique to that effect. And then government started to misbehave with the economy. Government started to increase prices. Petrol prices were indiscriminately increased, and then they gave it a name that has the potential to increase prices every month. So you notice every month petrol prices, electricity prices were increasing, but wages of workers did not increase. So how should the workers survive? But thank God that within 2 years, we managed to have another opportunity for negotiation, that is now. So you can see the agitation on the ground, that even the Secretary General's voice have changed. He doesn't speak like that because he believes in negotiations and social dialogue. He believes that we need to engage on our economy. And all of us believe that. So like he said, the last time we all went on a national strike was on the VAT. And it was about 17, 18 years ago. After that, we have not had a nationwide strike again. So all these strikes coming are pockets of strikes within the organized labor family. But organized labor itself have not embarked on any strike. And that is the momentum now. When we went to the negotiation last week, all the teacher unions were on strike. Somebody asked if the strike affects us. Yes, it affects all of us. My mother is a pensioner. My brother is a pensioner. My children are in schools. So when teachers go on strike, I went for my child Saturday morning. And then by the time she was leaving home, and the girl I saw when I went for her, I nearly wept. But she has grown lean. She was disorganized. Right. She's disorientated because the food quality was bad. And on top, people who would cook for them were not even coming to work. And they were meant, so the children were confused in the school. Yeah. And they are preparing to write their final WASI somewhere in September. Right. And the WASI will not wait for them. They will still go and write. So what should they do?
Right. So generally, you think that workers would be happy with this outcome?
Yes.
You've given us a whole background
yes.
of how agitated they've been for the past 2 years,
yeah.
understandably yeah. so. And you think that this decision of 15% agreement reached between the leaders and government would make workers happy?
Yes. Yes. Workers so far
right.
had been happy. We don't have all the workers happy, right. but we are managing. We also we are union leaders. We need to manage the expectation of our people. And when we went to the negotiation table, inflation was 29.8,
Right.
30.
Right.
So if you want to cushion, this is not salary, this is COLA, cost of living adjustment. So if we need to cushion our workers, and we looked at the economic situation around us, the IMF and the things that we are doing, and in negotiation, you come to a certain point. And then we had all the worker groups there, all the leaders of organized labor. And when we had, there were about 8 consultations. They go, we go. They go, we go. They go, we go. And we say, give us 3 minutes, and we go and spend 1 hour because we don't have consensus.
Right.
So the 15% might not be what will cushion the worker, but we need to build our economy. So workers in the building our economy, Ghana, let's say, have sacrificed the 15% and have taken 15%.
Okay.
Let's start with that one.
Absolutely. Now, there are a lot of other issues that come up, you know, as very directly outlined, you know, by Secretary General, you know, the Secretary General of the Trades Union Congress. And for me, interestingly, neocolonialism finds itself, you know, on that paper. You know, this is very rich, you know, it mentions class struggles and all of that. But these are concepts, these are ideas, and these are things we've had to live with from colonialism till now. How does the TUC expect to directly answer the question of neocolonialism today? And I'll read what it says. It says here, we insist that our main challenge in the management of the economy has to do with corruption and the failure on the part of successive governments to transform the structure of the Ghanaian economy to allow Ghanaians to produce what we eat and eat what we produce. Currently, the profit-making sectors such as mining, petroleum, banking are mainly in the hands of foreign companies. How does the TUC expect to address this and stop it?
Yeah. When you look at the demeanor of labor leaders and organized labor today, we are ready for total transformation. Everything in our laws now, we sat and developed them. And we have noticed that the type of laws and the legislation we have now does not inure to the benefit of the average Ghanaian worker. It does not. The evidence is clear that when you are looking at the poorest people, when you take farmers, peasant farmers, when you look at working people, every worker must borrow to eat, to be able to make it at the end of the month. So something is wrong. And like Secretary General said rightly, all the lucrative parts of our economy are owned by foreigners. There are more Nigerian banks in Ghana now, and there is no Nigeria bank, a Ghanaian bank in Nigeria today. When you look at all the lucrative areas, are owned by foreign people. When you look at our gold reserve, Ghana was called Gold Coast. So when somebody says it is Picasso, also now there's a certain truism in that, because we have the natural resources. It is mismanaged by human beings and then the type of policies that we have. That is why we have called that we made the policies. We made the laws. The trade union is ready to engage social partners, government included, to look at the laws again, to the extent that the laws benefits the people. The way it is now, we will need to review our constitution. It doesn't benefit. Our constitution basically is very discriminatory. You have some people called Article 71 people who are Ghanaians who work in Ghana, and they can take, some people can take a pension as high as 140,000 Ghana cedis. That is 1.4 billion old Ghana cedis. And there are people taking 300 Ghana cedis as pension. We are human beings. So we have a certain state structure which we need to discourage. We have systems where people can come into our communities and buy 400 plots of land on the lucrative side. So by the time you see, people have even bought our rivers. You go to some hotels in Accra, they bought lands close to the rivers. But when you look at, go to Lakpeshi and see, when you look at the Kpeshi Lagoon itself, it is entering some hotels. And the Kpeshi has lost, that is the protein basket of the people of La, to have tilapia. So we have tilapia. I was catching tilapia in the Kpeshi. All those assets we have. Look at the gold reserves. Look at the oil that Ghana hit. How is it oil affecting your life today? How is it affecting my life? I better exist as a non-oil economy, because everything I'm earning is what I struggled for. So our economy needs a certain overhaul, and the overhauling must include the people. The overhauling must be done with the people. The TUC believes that if we do this type of overhauling and we sit with partners and do it, we don't need IMF in Ghana today. Because like you said, this is our 18th year of going to IMF. And if IMF was a child, now we are adults. We should be able to manage our economy. Because this IMF going 18th is going to prepare us for another IMF, that is the 19th. And it prepares again for another IMF, that is 20. It means the scholars we have in Ghana, Ghanaians, like Kwame Nkrumah said, are not able to manage their economy and their resources properly. We need a total restructuring in our pensions. We need restructuring in the bridging the inequalities in the salary gaps. So when we are talking about low salaries, there are some people in Ghana who are still building, who are importing big cars, who are doing all the things. So people come to the country and they wonder what we are talking about.
And that will take us to the class struggle that is mentioned, in this document, also very directly, stated by Dr. Yao Ban.
Yeah.
Now, you being from the agricultural sector, let
Yeah.
me ask you this very direct question. This concept of producing what we eat and eating what we produce, what do you think structurally, systematically is making this impossible for us as Ghanaians? We have the lands, we've been noted in the past for very specific crops. We can't even speak of those crops like cocoa and all, these crops anymore. What do you think structurally, on paper? Because I find that whether we like it or not, that's where everything happens, isn't it? What do you think has gone wrong? Why are we unable to, as a country, produce what we eat and eat what we produce? It seems like a very basic, very achievable, important aspect of any economy.
It's a shame for us as Ghanaians. It's a shame that we have sold those days in Kwame Nkrumah days, even up to General Champon days. We were getting into that direction. We're producing what we eat, and then we're buying what we eat. So we're eating made in Ghana. We're proud to be Ghanaians, to be eating our products. But today we consume more foreign products than Ghanaian, what we grow here. It's a big, big, big shame. The policies that we have developed that can send us to that direction. Look at the agricultural policies that we developed. Planting for food and jobs. What did we plant? How many jobs did we get out of it? It is the implementation of certain policies that we develop ourselves, that we see hope in. Then we give it to some people and they mess all of us up. People have planted other things more than agricultural commodities. And these are times that we have good policies in terms of planting for food and jobs. And then when you ask of the jobs that have been produced, my colleagues and my friends are sitting at home, even including agricultural student graduates, extension agents. They are sitting at home unemployed when we're supposed to be an agrarian economy, meaning that we have the fertile soils. We have everything it takes to produce. And then we are implementing corrupt policies. We are implementing policies where we buy fertilizers for our farmers, and the fertilizers find themselves into neighboring countries like Burkina Faso and Ivory Coast. And the Ivorians produce the tomatoes with our fertilizers and bring it back to us, and then we become consumers of the Ivorian things. We have a structural problem. It is not because we don't have the resources. People who are corrupt in the implementation of our planting for food and jobs and the rest are working on the street freely. And they are the people that the system heals. They are the people who are having 3 houses and all those things when they have not even qualified for them. Our system needs a certain overhaul, and that is what the trade union we are calling for now. An agricultural policy for us without us is not possible. Right. The agricultural policies that we are calling for should be people-centered, should look at the type of structures we have. As we are a peasant economy. So for now, we should produce to feed our industry, and we should look at how to engage the individual farmers. We should look at how to engage them in groups of brigades such that they can produce and give to the people. Our planting for food and jobs and the other agricultural policies that we are rolling, we all know have failed all of us.
Absolutely.
And we need to change.
Absolutely. So, I mean, the struggle continues. This is what Dr. Yao says. Do you share, in that sentiment? That'll be my last question to you. Does the struggle continue?
The struggle continues. Like I told you in the beginning, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a step. Now we have done only the cola part of the step. So the cola part, all the striking unions have been called back to work. So that is the cola part. But we have pensions. We have pensions that make some people take 140 million and some people 300. We need to address that. We have an agricultural system that is not producing enough. We have the opportunity to produce rice in Ghana. When you go to ICO, we need to expand. When you go to JIDA, we need to expand. When you go to the Pong irrigation project, we need to expand. We need to have homegrown policies, planned, supervised by our own people, and they're protected by our own people. We should have very strong sanctions for corruption. Our country now is like those who are corrupt are the ones we are hailing. So people come and they are corrupt. The courts cannot even put them anywhere. They are around and they are working and they are. So corruption is becoming lucrative for the young people who are coming. They call it connection. It's corruption. We must have a policy that frowns on corruption and punishes corruption seriously. And the Ghana will move from the new colonial. We don't need IMF. We don't need IMF. And if they attempt any IMF policy on wages, IMF policies on employment, IMF policy that tends to freeze wages and then freezes employment, is the struggle. We shall fight it to the last part of our breath. I'm
very happy to hear all of this. I'm very excited about this very vibrant, TUC. I'm excited that after over 18 years, we seem to have awoken a sleeping giant.
Yes,
and I can't wait for all of this.
Persuasion have failed.
Right, and so force is being applied. I like action. Thank you. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
At CJ Multimedia, we have a wide range of LED display screens for your church programs, corporate events, musical concerts, and all other events. Our LED display screens are of high quality in terms of displaying live video feed, pictures, and motion graphics. Due to our high specs, their brightness allows them to be used anywhere, whether indoor or outdoor, and are very visible from a far distance. We're also able to customize our LED display screens to suit
Welcome back. We are still coming to you live from the headquarters of the TUC. We were in the hall earlier where we picked, the press conference from the General Secretary of the TUC in the person of Dr. Yao Ban. All of these conversations are a follow-on, of that statement, that press, statement by the General Secretary. We have been joined by Mr. Abdul Mumin Bana. He happens to be the General Secretary of Ghana Mine Workers Union. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
I've come to your house today.
Good to see you, and
it's
welcome to the TUC Hall.
Thank you. Are these happy times?
Well, I would say it's more of a mixed feeling. Happy, but not entirely happy.
Okay.
Happy because we got some cola. Happy because the TUC, the sleeping giant, is gradually getting back on its feet. And I'm pretty confident that the days ahead will be interesting.
Absolutely. So let's dive straight into the other issues that are keeping the struggle alive. Because, in the statements, we were told that the struggle continues, and so I'd like us to look over some of the issues. So there's the IMF, there's the issue of pensions, and specifically the issue about those who went on pensions earlier this year, January 2022, as against those who went on pension before that and who were under, and I like to read exactly what was said, those who were under the old pension law, PNDCL 247, the disparity in those figures, the fact that it's been drawn to the attention of government, and again, nothing seems to be happening on that front. There's the issue of the disparity in the unfairness of remunerations between the public sector workers, those under the single spine salary, and those under the Article 7 office holders and state-owned enterprises. There's also, the issue of a class struggle. I think this falls directly under that. The IMF, I've spoken about that already. The issue of neocolonialism, not being able to grow what we eat, not eating what we grow, the fact that all of our profit-making sectors are still, under foreign companies. There's the issue of no remunerations for some, and also the fact that government has been constantly reminded to employ young people. So the issues are a lot. These are the general issues. They are very industry-specific issues, like with agriculture, like with your sector. So what's the way forward? How does the TUC intend to find answers to all of these issues that have been, very brilliantly and very directly listed?
Well, thank you very much. I think that TUC has always been known as a very progressive, engaged social dialogue. Okay, and so if you have followed TUC over the years, we are known for our openness, but also very blunt. And so at the level of negotiations, we will normally give you benefit of doubt and engage on the area of issues that you have catalogued. But beyond that, there are several other, strategies in this country. Believes that beyond, negotiations, beyond social dialogue, there are other remedies through which we can achieve most of these issues that we have highlighted. And we did not mince words. The Secretary General did not mince words when he said that, look, we are open. We expect you to be progressive. We expect you to be forthright. Engage us from a standpoint of openness. And that is why, if you observe, we have often served notice. We have often signaled to the powers that be, in this case government. We have highlighted to them what we think there's a need for us to have a conversation about. And so we just don't get up and do things anyhow. Before we take certain steps, we would have initiated earlier ones. And so we expect that government have listened and will continue to listen. And so once government listens, all the other key stakeholders who form part of the National Tripartite Committee, they listen and they are deeply concerned, and there's a conversation between the parties. I'm pretty confident that we can find solution to many of the problems that we have enumerated. But beyond that, if there's some level of hesitance or resistance, or sometimes avoidance on the part of government, that is what brings about the altercations that ensue between or amongst the actors. And so our expectation is that there's a lot to do at the same time. We are open, let's get together, let's think tank around what qualifies as a short-term, kind of activity, what qualifies as a medium-term, long-term, so that there's a clear roadmap as to how we want to progress as partners in development. Because the TUC is not a stranger sitting somewhere. We are within the Ghanaian ecosystem. And so if the country, develops, if the country grows, if the outcomes of our collective effort inures to the benefit of workers, obviously it will inure to the benefit of every other citizen in this country. So TUC, and by extension, all its affiliates, are deeply concerned about the development trajectory of this country.
Absolutely. Now, forgive me if I sound a little too blunt, but I'm a little concerned about tone, and I will tell you exactly why. We are coming from, and this is from the 1st of May, when this particular drama started unfolding, if I can call it that, where, there was a request that was made that the president should use his executive powers to ensure the payment of COLA. That didn't happen. And so on the 24th, of June, a reminder was sent to the president through a letter from no less a person than the General Secretary of the TUC himself. That didn't happen. On the 4th of July, we had, those in the education sector with all the allied, organizations like TEU embarking on a strike, with others, threatening to join in. There were 4 separate meetings, that all ended up in an impasse, walkouts, where nothing seemed to be happening. The very last one I recall, we were in the studio, and I recall the annoyance of somebody who was in that meeting saying that government came with a very terrible strategy of those who are striking, we will not negotiate with you. Those who are not striking, we will negotiate with you, and and all of this. So there's history with this one. So when we say, for instance, we would like to thank God for the peace we are enjoying. We thank His Excellency the President. We thank him for his timely intervention and things like that. Forgive me. It makes me wonder if we are not going back to the old order, the old way of engaging, which has not proved very fruitful in the past. I thought that these were the days of action, and all of our language and all of our activities are going to highlight this new TUC that has very sharp teeth and is ready to bite. Am I overthinking all of these? Am I, being the one that's pouring sand in this very delicious gari? I mean, comment on this.
Well, on the contrary, the TUC is very, very potent. And I must say that our strategies are not unidimensional, So we have a gamut of strategies. And so we just don't set out, to antagonize everybody within the system. That's not our approach. That's not our way of doing things. What the TUC does is, first and foremost, to engage. And if you read the Secretary General's statement on behalf of TUC, it's obvious that an acknowledgement of the key role or the participation of all the actors, which culminated in the outcome that we all witnessed a couple of days ago, is a clear demonstration that this is an organization that is progressive. I mean, ordinarily, and depending on style, an organization such as TUC probably would have decided to ignore, as a matter of course, whatever happened a couple of days ago. Well, if we are demanding for cost of living allowance, we believe it's legitimate. It's in the right direction, and that is why we are demanding it. And so for TUC, first and foremost, to acknowledge the important role of government and go ahead to commend them for the spirit and the attitude that they demonstrated during the negotiations. I believe that
that's my question.
Yeah.
As a worker in Ghana, I did not find the spirit and the attitude and the approach of government accommodating.
Yeah.
I did not find it commendable, right, in all of the dealings. And we followed this, you know that. We were in the studio a couple of times. We followed this very keenly, to come into a negotiation and say, for instance, that I will not negotiate with this group, that group, I will only negotiate with this group, to blatantly ignore, a persistent calls, from the very top hierarchy of the TUC and all of that. We've come far from the 1st of May till now, unless I'm expecting too much, So from where I sit, the posturing, could have been better. And so to find governments being commended for that posturing it's a little, you know.
You know, that's the beauty of negotiations. Okay. You see, you can walk into a negotiation with a very scary posture. You can also walk into a negotiation very light, you know, very nice and open. At the end of the day, it's the outcome that matters.
Right.
And I think that the TUC and by extension organized labor took the latter. What we decided to do in the midst of extreme provocation, as a matter of fact, in other jurisdictions, a demand for unions, striking unions to leave before consultations, you know, ensue, would have actually resulted in a total walkout. And I wasn't surprised when some of the colleagues who were in that meeting, you know, indicated to us that, look, they staged the walkout, because that was the demand they put on the table. So I think that by and large, it is about blending, you know, the interests. At the end of the day, whether you get angry or you smile, it is the outcome that matters. Right. We got angry. At some point, we smiled. The outcome was that we got some cola for our members. Right. And that is the most important thing. Right. But I think that the TUC should not be pushed. The TUC and by extension organized labor should not be pushed. We are a key stakeholder in the development of this country. Without the working people of this country, there's no country. And so productivity is on the top of the agenda. So it's important that government makes matured overtures to organized labor, TUC, so that we can work together in a more collaborative manner. But if government decides to be intransigent, we won't do this, we won't do that, they do that at their own peril. And so it's in the collective interest of all the stakeholders within, you know, the economy to work closely together, more particularly TUC. Most of the concerns that TUC has highlighted in its press statement are clearly matters that are within the reach of government. And the smartest way to go around it is to open up and engage, rather than, you know, being positional and intransigent when it comes to the concerns that border on workers of this country.
Right. Okay. So now, and this is a question that I've asked every executive that has sat in this chair. What's the way forward for the unification of, you know, TUC, a stronger bond, a stronger, you know, a body that's ready, you know, to do action? I mean, what's the way forward? Are you formalizing some of the meetings that have brought us, you know, from first May to this far? You know, are you, you know, what's new? What's going to be new? How are we going to keep this new bond that, as a worker, I definitely approve?
Well, TUC is made up of close to 22, as a matter of fact, the latest update, about 22 very strong affiliate unions, including both the private and public sector, you know, trade unions. And so the robustness of TUC itself is not in doubt. And for that matter, the capacity to confront, you know, the emerging, you know, issues that confront Ghanaian workers is not something that TUC do not have the capacity to. But recognizing that within the labor environment, we have other unions, which we refer to them as our colleagues. Okay, we definitely would have to work closely with them. And it manifested during this whole, you know, strike action for COLA, when the teacher unions got together. The support of the TUC, including other public sector unions, you know, was very overwhelming. And that, to a very large extent, signaled to government that, look, you either open up, negotiate, or there's trouble looming. And so the unification of the entire labor movement of this country, in my view, has actually been resuscitated largely by the push for COLA. Like I indicated in our earlier conversations, it is just the beginning. COLA is one of the very important issues that we needed to deal with. Thankfully, it's been put on the back burner now. There are quite a number of issues ahead of us, and you touched on some of them. And so In the coming days, we expect that government will be more proactive to engage with the TUC and by extension organized labor so that we can deal with these issues in a more strategic manner rather than being reactive, throw your hands in despair and complain about the fact that you have gone to IMF and for that matter, organized labor cannot make demands and all that. I don't think that this is a time to justify why somebody cannot do whatever he or she thinks, would help alleviate his current situation. This is rather the time for us to be more open and sincere in our discussions. And that, for me, is the way to go.
Absolutely. Are we going to see a TUC that's going to be very present, in all of our national discourse and with all of the issues that come up going forward? Because, the issues persist, the cost of inflation persists, this issue of IMF persists, corruption persists, all of these issues persist. Are we going to periodically, this issue of a luxury flight for the president, all of these issues that come back as base issues, even for the TUC, are we going to be hearing more from the TUC as and when, issues come up? For me, wouldn't that be one way to go? Or would we want to wait till we are demanding for something before we get into the fray? Because I think that all of these issues, interestingly, have found expression within this document that the General Secretary...
as a matter of fact, TUC has always been very proactive. And many of the issues are not new issues. These are issues that have made the rounds amongst the key actors within the economy. And so many of the issues are not new. I mean, the decision to go to the IMF, the concerns around virtually outsourcing or virtually giving ownership of our most productive sectors of the economy into the hands of foreigners. This is no new thing. Post the structural adjustment program in the 1980s, the situation has always been the way it is, where you have so-called inflow of foreign direct investment in return for capital flight and all that. So whatever the TUC is raising today are matters that have been raised over the years. What we should be concerned about now is action. We need to move into action.
Absolutely.
And that is why the Secretary General did not mince words. In his statement, he was very categorical that, look, we have tasted IMF. Indeed, this is the 18th time we are approaching the IMF. It hasn't given us any better returns. IMF has only come to aggravate our existing conditions, and that is a reality. And so we believe that given what IMF would eventually inflict on the Ghanaian people, as against what we could have done potentially, given all the resources that we have in this country. And I work in the mining sector. Right. You know the huge resources that we have. Is it gold that we do not have? Manganese, bauxite. So the point you ask is, or the question you ask is, with all these resources that we could leverage domestically, if we are not doing anything about it, and all we can do is go cap in hand, asking IMF to intervene almost every now and then. And like he rightly said, the 18th is beckoning, the 19th is actually warming up, and the 20th is out there. So the point is, at what point are we able to manage our own affairs? So the TUC, I think that we are sick and tired of the rhetorics. We have, in ourselves, come to the realization that the talk shop is becoming too much. And so we need to move into action. And that is why the Secretary General, on behalf of TUC and by extension organized labor, has signaled to the powers that be that get ready, because it's not going to be sit around the table and talk anymore. It's about moving into action and to ensure that we hold, the powers that be to account. We gave our resources to them. They formed the government. We gave our resources to them, including, our own freedoms and our own liberties. We're saying that they should manage this economy and they should manage it properly. And so it is their job to do so. Right. So if you decide not to, and all you're interested in is to cut corners, very short-termist, ways of managing the economy, which doesn't bring the needed returns, and for that matter, we have to always be going to these Bretton Woods institutions. TUC says no, the narrative ought to change, and the narrative must change now, and that is the signal we have given.
Absolutely, absolutely, and for a lot of those places, I put exclamation marks, just so that it sounds like a lot more action, as I read it. So let me just read something here. It says, brothers and sisters, the greatest challenge ahead of us is the IMF-sponsored program. As we know, IMF-sponsored programs and policies are completely divorced from reality. We have already communicated our objection to the decision to seek an IMF bailout for the 18th time. We are convinced that an IMF program will not solve our problems. It will only impose hardships on Ghanaians. Once again, we would like to remind government that as part of the negotiations for the 2021 and 2022 base pay, we agreed to the 4% and 7% pay increase respectively on condition that government will not declare redundancies and that government will continue to employ young people into the public service. It goes on to say we insist, and all of these things, but where are the action points? So what does the TUC intend to do about, redundancies and our inability to employ young people into the public sector? These are daily realities. People come out of the universities every day, they don't have jobs, conditionality of some of these bailouts insists that some people become redundant. These are everyday realities. And it's great that the TUC articulates this on paper, but how? How does the TUC intend to actualize some of these expectations of government?
If you understand the workings of trade unions, this statement is enough for you to go and rethink if you were in government. Trade unions are very accommodating, but they would also signal to you ahead of time. This is a very forceful signal to government about pacts that government itself has entered into with organized labor. And like the Secretary General stated, 4%, 7% was agreed to against a certain background or backdrop. And so if that includes employment, as a matter of fact, government said they were going to recruit a lot of young people, create close to about 1 million jobs. Government said there wouldn't be redundancies. And so if these are conditions precedent for the acceptance of the 4% and 7% respectively, then the question remains, why would government under an IMF bailout go against the understanding reached between organized labor and itself? And so the TUC, and by extension organized labor, is signaling to government that, look, you can go to IMF because that is actually, in quote, a lazy man's approach to managing the economy. You can go there because that is the way that is the choice you have decided to make. But be warned that the understanding that we entered into, which were actually conditions precedent for the acceptance of the 4% and 7%, cannot be reneged. And so that is a strong signal. For me, it's not about climbing to the rooftop and shouting so loud for people to hear you. I think that we have served enough notice. We have signaled to government that, look, this is how we feel. As a matter of fact, we reject the decision to go to IMF. But that is your choice. You have gone to IMF. We are also aware that there are conditionalities that will come with the eventual program. But we want to caution you that those conditionalities should not have any impact or any effect on the working people of this country.
What if it happens?
Why the Secretary General said,
if it happens, sir? We are going to the IMF for the 18th time. What if, as part of the conditionalities, workers have to be redundant again?
Easy peasy. We shall resist any attempt to inflict hardship, untold hardship, on the Ghanaian people. And as a matter of fact, I don't need to reference some social movements across the world and what is happening in other jurisdictions. But it is not far off from Ghana. And it may start from the working people of this country, led by the TUC. And that is why we need to be proactive. Pick all the intelligence and make sure we're proactive in engaging TUC and by extension organized labor. And so let us not joke with this press statement that has come out. It's a strong signal. If, as part of an IMF program, government decides to go back on its own commitments, the TUC and its affiliates, and by extension organized labor, shall not hesitate to act in a manner that ensures that these agreements and understandings that have been entered into are respected. And for us, that is a very simple signal that we are giving to government.
Okay. So let me ask this last question. Following the questions that were asked, Mr. Yalba, after he read the praise statements from some of my colleagues, the indication was that the TUC would ideally not strike, that the TUC is reluctant, of striking and strike activities and industrial actions. That the TUC would rather dialogue, because the TUC is wary of sort of grinding this machine to a halt because of all the implications it would have for the people and for the economy and all of that. And yet the TUC is negotiating with sometimes a government that is plain recalcitrant. So my question then becomes, and over time we have seen that the only way to get government to act is through these actions, through these industrial actions, through all of these strikes, all of these things. Should I be worried as a Ghanaian worker that, the TUC knows the button to press? Forgive me for being so blunt again. And yet the TUC is constantly reluctant, to use that one powerful tool that it has.
Well, let me correct an erroneous impression maybe out there. The TUC is not hesitant to act. The TUC, over the years, based on both the law and practice, has always had its own way of dealing with issues. If you look at the position of the law, ordinarily you give your negotiating partner the benefit of doubt. And so you enter into negotiations in good faith with the hope that the bargaining partner will come relaxed, opened, and so both sides can negotiate a deal, mirroring your mutual interest. If, however, that fails, there are remedies in law, including decision to serve notice and strike. So the law itself endorses collective action. And so the TUC, being a law-abiding organization, we're not a lawless organization. We're a very abiding organization, a law-abiding organization. And for that matter, the TUC's natural approach would be to dialogue, to negotiate, give our negotiating partners the benefit of doubt. But if we realize, or it's established, that our bargaining partners are becoming overly recalcitrant, as you use that word, then TUC will have no option but to deploy other strategies, including collective action. And so striking has never, ever been one that we detest as an institution. We will strike if we have to strike. But if there's no need to strike, why not talk? And so we see talking as the first approach to dealing with issues, unless, of course, it becomes urgently imperative for us to strike, in which case we will not hesitate to. And I can assure you all the 22 affiliate unions will support the TUC, and by extension, organized labor, to bring this country to a halt and to demonstrate to the powers that be that workers have a voice and they ought to be heard. like every other person within the economy.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for your time. I would like to end the session by reading the last paragraph, of Dr. Yalban's presentation. It says, IMF programs will not deal with these fundamental structural issues. IMF programs only prepare the country for the next IMF bailout so that IMF will continue to be in business. We know that the 18th IMF program being negotiated now will not be different from the previous ones. What will surely be different this time is that the TUC will lead the working people of Ghana to resist any attempt to impose hardships on workers and their families and the Ghanaian population as a whole. Long live workers' solidarity, long live Ghana. So this has been our time here at the Hall of Trade Unions in Ghana. Let me quickly say thank you to all of those that we have spoken to since we've been here. And we have been in conversation with Mr. Andrews Adokwe Tego. He's Deputy General Secretary, General Agricultural Workers Union, GAWU of TUC. We spoke to Mr. Joshua Ansa. He's the Deputy General Secretary, TUC. We spoke to Madam Comforter Gamba, General Secretary, General Construction, Manufacturing and Queries Union, TUC. We have just spoken to Mr. Abdul Mumin Bana. He is the General Secretary, Ghana Mine Workers Union Association of the TUC. I would like to say a big thank you to CJ Multimedia for facilitating this live coverage. I would like to say thank you to you for following all of this from the 1st of May till now. We have been told that the struggle continues, that the plight of the working people of Ghana is still at the forefront of the mind and the eye of the TUC. At Pan-African TV, we are excited to live through these times. We're excited to observe this, and we promise you that we would be here every time in solidarity with the TUC, in solidarity with the people of Ghana. See you. Thank you for watching.
Hello and welcome to CJ TV Studio.
CJ TV Studio has a professional ultra-modern television studio available for rentals. Our studio is equipped for the most demanding multi-camera productions of broadcasting quality. CJ TV Studio is ready for use, and the rental price includes a technical crew, camera equipment, lighting, sound, and live video editing. We can also easily make live broadcasts on the internet. Rent our TV studio for your news bulletins, interviews, talk shows, fashion shows, webcasts, religious broadcasts, sports shows, and auditions. Contact CJ TV Studio for appointments on the following numbers: 0302-220-715 or 0545-059-319.
For your live or post-production coverage, we have a wide range of video equipment that can help you make your production a memorable one. From 4K cinema and DSLR cameras to the 4K drones, Blackmagic Live Production Suite.